Memphis, November 18, 1971. Elvis couldn't sleep and decided to walk the Graceland grounds at 3 a.m. That's when he saw it, a beat-up station wagon parked just outside the gates with condensation on the windows. Inside were a mother, father, and 3 children huddled together trying to stay warm. What Elvis did in the next 6 hours would transform 5 lives and create a legacy of generosity that continues today. Subscribe to Elvis Presley Legacy Stories for moments when the King showed us that compassion knows no business hours. Elvis had been struggling with insomnia for weeks. The pressures of constant touring, recording sessions, and the weight of maintaining his status as the king of rock and roll were taking their toll. On this particular November night, sleep was proving impossible despite the late hour. Rather than stay in bed staring at the ceiling, Elvis decided to take a walk around the Graceland property. He threw on a jacket over his pajamas, slipped into his boots, and headed outside into the cold Memphis night. The temperature had dropped to near freezing, and his breath formed clouds in the air as he walked. Elvis loved these quiet moments when Graceland was still and dark, when he could be alone with his thoughts without the constant demands of fame pressing in on him. He walked past the swimming pool, through the gardens, down toward the gates that separated his private world from the public street beyond. But what Elvis didn't know yet was, just beyond those gates, a family was fighting for survival. As Elvis approached the front gates, something caught his eye. A car was parked on the street just outside the property line. Not unusual, as fans sometimes parked there, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. But something about this car was different. The windows were completely fogged up with condensation, and he could see the faint outline of people inside. Elvis moved closer to the gates, squinting in the darkness. The car was an old station wagon, at least 10 years old, with visible rust spots and a cracked rear window covered with cardboard and tape. As his eyes adjusted, he could make out more details. Blankets hanging over the windows, makeshift curtains attempting to provide privacy. Then he saw movement inside, someone shifting position, the faint sound of a child crying. Elvis's heart clenched. He knew immediately what he was looking at. This wasn't fans waiting for an autograph. This was a family living in their car, parked outside his gates because at least there the neighborhood was safe and well lit. Wait until you see what happened next. Elvis stood there for a long moment, processing what he was seeing. While he lived in a 23-room mansion with every comfort imaginable, a family with children was sleeping in a car on his street, probably hoping that the proximity to Graceland meant they wouldn't be harassed or told to move along. The contrast hit him like a physical blow. Here he was, unable to sleep in his comfortable bed because of stress and anxiety, while these people would probably give anything for a bed at all. Elvis made a decision. He walked back to the house, went to his bedroom, and threw on proper clothes. Then he woke up his cousin, Billy Smith, who often stayed at Graceland. "Billy, I need you to come with me. There's something I gotta do. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet." Elvis and Billy walked out through a side gate and approached the station wagon on foot. Elvis moved carefully, knowing that appearing suddenly at 3 a.m. could frighten people who were probably already on edge. He tapped gently on the driver's side window. Inside, there was immediate panic, the sound of people scrambling, children being shushed, someone trying to start the car engine in case they needed to flee. Elvis stepped back and raised his hands in a non-threatening gesture. The cardboard covering the window was pulled aside slightly, and a man's face appeared, mid-30s, unshaven, exhausted, and terrified. "Please don't call the police," the man said through the closed window, his voice muffled but desperate. "We'll leave. We're not causing trouble. We just needed somewhere safe for the night." "Sir, I'm not calling anyone," Elvis said calmly. "My name is Elvis Presley. This is my house. I saw your car and wanted to make sure y'all were okay. Don't miss this crucial detail." The man's expression changed from fear to disbelief. Slowly, he rolled down the window a few inches, studying Elvis's face in the streetlight. You're really him?" "Yes, sir, I am. What's your name?" Robert Mitchell. This is my wife Susan and our 3 kids." Elvis could now see the full scene inside the car. A woman in the passenger seat holding a baby, 2 other children, maybe 5 and 7 years old, huddled in the back seat under blankets. Their breath had created the condensation on the windows. The car smelled of unwashed bodies, desperation, and shame. "Mr. Mitchell, how long have y'all been living in your car?" Robert's voice cracked. 2 weeks. I lost my job at the factory. Couldn't make rent, got evicted. We've been staying at different places, trying to stay warm, trying to keep the kids safe. What you're about to witness will blow your mind." Elvis looked at the children in the back seat. The oldest, a little girl, was staring at him with wide eyes. The younger boy was asleep. The baby in Susan's arms was whimpering softly. Think about this. If you saw a family living in a car outside your home, What would you do? Would you call authorities, offer money, or would you do what Elvis did next? Mr. Mitchell, I want you and your family to come inside my house right now. You're going to get warm, get food, and we're going to figure out how to help you. Robert Mitchell shook his head. Mr. Presley, we can't impose on you like that. You don't know us. We could be anyone. You're a family in trouble, Elvis said simply. That's all I need to know. Now come on. It's freezing out here and those babies need to be warm. Susan spoke for the first time, her voice thick with tears. We're dirty. We smell bad. We haven't had a proper bath in 2 weeks. We can't come into your beautiful home like this. Elvis's expression softened. Ma'am, my mama raised me in a 2-room house in Tupelo. We didn't always have running water. I know what it's like to be poor. There's no shame in your situation, only in not accepting help when it's offered. Please, let me help you. That's when the real magic began. Robert looked at his wife. Susan looked at her children. Then they both started crying. Not quiet tears, but the kind of sobbing that comes from weeks of stress, fear, and humiliation finally breaking through. Okay, Robert finally managed. Okay, thank you. Elvis helped them gather their few belongings. 2 garbage bags of clothes, a box of diapers, some toys for the children. Billy went ahead to alert the house staff and prepare rooms. As they walked through the gates of Graceland, the Mitchell family looked like refugees entering a promised land. The children were silent, overwhelmed, holding their parents' hands tightly. Hold on, this story has an incredible continuation. Elvis led them into Graceland through a side entrance, taking them straight to the kitchen. He turned on the lights and the warmth of the house immediately surrounded them. First thing, let's get you all something to eat, Elvis said, opening the refrigerator. Kids, do you like peanut butter and jelly? The little girl nodded shyly. The boy just stared. Elvis made sandwiches while Billy warmed up soup. The Mitchell family sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Elvis ate his meals, looking around in disbelief at the luxury surrounding them. While you eat, I'm going to have my housekeeper prepare rooms for you. You'll each get proper baths, clean clothes, and comfortable beds. Then tomorrow we'll talk about what comes next. Susan was crying again. Why are you doing this for us? You don't even know us. You need to know this incredible detail. Elvis sat down at the table with them. Ma'am, I told you my mama raised me poor. What I didn't tell you is that there were times when we were just like you. Times when we didn't know where we'd sleep or when we'd eat next. Times when people helped us and times when they didn't. I never forgot how it felt to be on the receiving end of someone's kindness, and I never forgot how it felt when people looked away. He paused, watching the children eat their sandwiches with the desperation of people who hadn't had enough food in days. I got lucky. I got famous and rich, but that doesn't make me better than anyone else. It just means I have the ability to help when I see someone who needs it. And right now, you need it. After the family ate, Elvis's staff prepared the guest rooms. The children were bathed by staff members while Robert and Susan used separate bathrooms to clean up. Elvis provided them with clothes from his own closet and from Priscilla's wardrobe. By 5 a.m., the Mitchell family was tucked into beds with clean sheets, warm blankets, and full stomachs. The children fell asleep immediately, the deep sleep of people who finally felt safe. Robert and Susan lay in their bed crying tears of relief and disbelief. Elvis checked on them before going to his own room. Sleep as late as you want. Tomorrow we'll talk about getting you back on your feet. Mr. Presley, Robert said from the darkness, I don't know how we'll ever repay you. You don't repay kindness, Elvis said. You pass it forward when you're able. But the most touching moment was still to come. Elvis let the family sleep until noon, then joined them for lunch. Over fried chicken and mashed potatoes, they told him their full story. Robert had worked at a manufacturing plant for 12 years. When the company downsized, he was laid off with minimal severance. With 3 young children, their savings evaporated quickly. They fell behind on rent, got evicted, and found themselves with nowhere to go. They had tried shelters, but they were full. They had applied for assistance, but the bureaucracy was slow. They had family, but everyone was struggling themselves. So they lived in their car, moving from place to place, trying to keep the children safe and warm while Robert looked for work. I've applied to 50 jobs in the past 2 weeks, Robert said. But when you can't put a permanent address on the application, when you can't shower before an interview, when you show up looking like someone who's been living in a car, nobody wants to hire you. Wait until you hear what Elvis did next. Elvis listened to all of this without interrupting. When Robert finished, Elvis nodded thoughtfully. Here's what we're going to do. First, you and your family are going to stay here at Graceland for as long as it takes to get you situated. I have plenty of room, and you won't be any trouble. Second, I'm going to make some phone calls today about jobs. I know people who are hiring. Third, we're going to find you an apartment, a good one, in a safe neighborhood, and I'm going to cover the first 6 months of rent to give you time to get stable. The Mitchells sat in stunned silence. But here's what I need from you, Elvis continued. When you're back on your feet, when you're stable and comfortable again, I want you to promise me that you'll help someone else who's struggling. Not necessarily with money if you don't have it, but with time. with attention, with caring. That's how we change the world, one act of kindness at a time. Robert reached across the table and gripped Elvis's hand. I promise. We promise. Over the next 3 weeks, the Mitchell family lived at Graceland while Elvis and his staff helped rebuild their lives. Elvis made calls to business owners he knew, and within a week, Robert had a job at a local auto repair shop. The owner was a fan and was happy to help. Elvis took Robert shopping for work clothes and tools. He took Susan and the children shopping for clothes, toys, and essentials. He had his accountant help Robert set up a bank account and budget. He had his lawyer help Robert understand his rights and navigate the assistance programs available to him. Most importantly, Elvis treated them like family. He played with the children, taught them songs, let them run around Graceland like it was their own home. He talked with Robert about fatherhood, responsibility, and pride. He talked with Susan about resilience and hope. Incredible revelation coming up. 3 weeks after that cold November night, Elvis drove the Mitchell family to their new apartment, a 3-bedroom place in a safe neighborhood with good schools. The apartment was furnished with furniture Elvis had purchased. The refrigerator was stocked with food. The closets were filled with clothes. Everything they needed for a fresh start was there. "Mr. Presley," Susan said, tears streaming down her face for what felt like the 100th time. "How can we ever thank you enough?" Elvis hugged her. "Raise those beautiful children to be kind people. That's thanks enough." What makes this story even more remarkable is that Elvis kept it completely private. He didn't tell the press. He didn't use it for publicity. He didn't even tell most of his close friends. The only people who knew were those directly involved and those who worked at Graceland. The Mitchell family wanted to go public with their gratitude, but Elvis asked them not to. "If people know I do this, I'll be flooded with requests," he explained. "And I can't help everyone, but I can help the people I come across who need it. Let's keep this between us." The family honored his request for years. It wasn't until after Elvis's death that Robert Mitchell finally told their story publicly, wanting the world to know about Elvis's private generosity. But here's something most people still don't know. The Mitchell family wasn't the only one. After that November night, Elvis began regularly checking the area around Graceland for homeless people. He would go out at night or early in the morning looking for people who needed help. Over the next 6 years until his death, Elvis quietly helped at least 15 other families or individuals in similar situations. Billy Smith later revealed, Elvis couldn't stand the idea that people were suffering within sight of his house while he had so much. He made it his mission to help anyone who ended up near Graceland because they were desperate. Robert Mitchell kept his promise to Elvis. Once his family was stable, he began volunteering at homeless shelters and food banks. He started a program at his church to help families facing eviction, providing emergency assistance and job placement help. "I could never do for others what Elvis did for us," Robert said in a 1985 interview. "But I can do something, and if everyone who was helped by someone's kindness passed that forward, we could eliminate homelessness entirely." Robert's program helped over 200 families avoid homelessness over the next 20 years. Many of those families went on to start their own community assistance programs, creating a chain of generosity that traced directly back to that November night when Elvis found them in their car. The Mitchell children grew up with a profound sense of gratitude and social responsibility. The oldest daughter, Maria, became a social worker specializing in family services. The son, David, became a minister who focused on serving homeless populations. The youngest, who was just a baby that night, became a pediatrician who provided free care to low-income families. "Elvis saved our lives, but more than that, he showed us how to live," Maria said. "He showed us that having more than you need means you have the responsibility to help those who don't have enough. That lesson shaped everything we became. Wait until you hear what happened after." In 1982, a Memphis journalist researching Elvis's private life discovered records of the apartment rental and furniture purchases Elvis had made for the Mitchell family. When she tracked down Robert Mitchell and asked him about it, he finally told the full story. The article she wrote, titled "The King's Private Kindness," sparked a nationwide conversation about private charity versus public assistance, celebrity responsibility, and how we help people experiencing homelessness. Other celebrities came forward with their own stories of Elvis's private generosity. A restaurant owner revealed that Elvis had once paid the rent for his entire staff when the restaurant had to close temporarily. A teacher shared that Elvis had secretly funded a scholarship program at her school. A nurse told about the time Elvis paid the hospital bills for every patient on the children's ward. A pattern emerged. Elvis was constantly quietly helping people, and he always insisted on keeping it private. Elvis understood that charity done for publicity isn't really charity, the journalist wrote. He helped people because he couldn't not help them, because he remembered being poor and powerless because he believed that having wealth meant having responsibility. Mental health professionals who studied Elvis's behavior patterns noted that his generosity wasn't just altruistic, it was also therapeutic for him. Helping others gave him a sense of purpose that performing couldn't provide. Dr. Raymond Thompson, who wrote a psychological profile of Elvis in 1990, explained, "Elvis was profoundly uncomfortable with wealth and fame. He felt guilty that he had so much while others had so little. By helping people directly, personally, immediately, he was able to reconcile those feelings. It was his way of staying connected to his roots and maintaining his sense of human decency." The Mitchells confirmed this analysis. "When Elvis talked to us, he seemed almost grateful to us for letting him help," Susan remembered. "Like we were doing him a favor by accepting his generosity. He never made us feel inferior or dependent. He made us feel like we were all just humans helping each other." This psychological insight added depth to Elvis's public image, showing that his generosity came from a complex mix of empathy, guilt, gratitude, and a need for authentic human connection. If you suddenly had great wealth, how would you use it? Would you help others publicly to inspire more giving or privately to preserve dignity? There's no right answer, but Elvis chose privacy, believing that real generosity requires no audience. Robert Mitchell passed away in 2015 at age 79, having lived a full life that was completely transformed by that November night. His obituary mentioned Elvis prominently. Robert was forever grateful to Elvis Presley, who saved his family when they needed it most and taught him that kindness is the greatest legacy we can leave. Susan Mitchell is now 88 and still lives in Memphis. She keeps a framed photo of Elvis in her living room and tells the story to her grandchildren and great-grandchildren regularly. "People ask me what Elvis was really like," Susan says. "I tell them he was exactly what you'd hope he'd be. Kind, generous, humble, and genuinely concerned about other people. He didn't have to help us. We were nobody to him, but he saw us as somebody because that's who he was." The three Mitchell children, now in their 50s, have all maintained the tradition of helping others that Elvis instilled in them. They meet annually on November 18th, the anniversary of that night, to volunteer at homeless shelters in Elvis's memory. After Elvis's death, Priscilla Presley discovered detailed records of his private charitable giving. The amounts were staggering, millions of dollars given away quietly to individuals in need. She established the Elvis Presley Charitable Foundation to continue his work. The foundation has helped thousands of families experiencing homelessness, always with the same approach Elvis used: personal, private, comprehensive assistance designed to get people back on their feet permanently rather than just providing temporary relief. "Elvis didn't just give people money," said the foundation's first director. "He gave them dignity, opportunity, and hope. That's what we try to continue doing in his memory." The foundation also established the November 18th initiative, providing emergency assistance to families at risk of homelessness during the winter months when cold weather makes living in cars especially dangerous. The story of Elvis and the Mitchell family teaches us profound lessons about generosity, dignity, and human connection. First, it reminds us that the best help is often given privately, without expectation of recognition or reward. Second, it shows us that real assistance addresses root causes rather than just symptoms. Elvis didn't just give the Mitchells a meal. He gave them time, attention, resources, and opportunities to rebuild their lives completely. Third, it demonstrates that generosity is most meaningful when it comes from a place of empathy rather than pity. Elvis helped the Mitchells because he saw himself in them, not because he saw himself as superior to them. How many families are living in cars on our streets right now, hoping for someone to notice and care? What would our communities look like if more of us had Elvis's instinct to help immediately and completely when we encounter people in crisis? Over 50 years later, people still talk about the night Elvis found a homeless family outside Graceland and changed their lives forever. It wasn't his biggest concert or his most famous song, but it was perhaps his most important act, a demonstration that true royalty is measured by how we treat those who have nothing to offer us in return. In a world that often judges success by wealth accumulated, this story reminds us that the greatest success is wealth shared, especially with those who need it most. Elvis had everything, but he never forgot what it felt like to have nothing. That memory made him not just a great entertainer, but a great human being. That's why this story matters. It reminds us that we're never more than one bad break away from being the family in the car, and that the measure of our character is what we do when we have the power to help, and nobody is watching. That November night in 1971, Elvis Presley proved that being the king of rock and roll meant nothing compared to being a king of kindness. He showed us that true generosity happens at 3 a.m. when nobody's watching, that real help requires time and attention, not just money, and that the greatest gift we can give someone in crisis is not charity, but dignity. The Mitchell family came to Graceland with nothing and left with everything they needed to rebuild their lives. But more importantly, they left with a lesson about kindness that they passed forward to hundreds of others, creating a ripple effect of generosity that continues today. If this story moved you, look around your own community for people who need help. You don't need to be Elvis Presley to change someone's life. You just need to care enough to act. Subscribe to Elvis Presley Legacy Stories to discover more moments when the king showed us that true wealth is measured by what we give away, not what we keep. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that one act of kindness can change everything, because that's what real kings do.